Is President Trump's name on the Epstein list? Do you believe our current commander-in-chief may have went so far as to take the sexual innocence of a minor, perhaps several minors? That's a strong accusation to make, and we're not going to make it here because the list has not been released, and at this point, any accusations against President Trump is just that. They're only accusations. You're only alleging things without any official proof. However, one thing cannot be overlooked, and it is not an allegation. It's not an accusation. It's a matter of fact as we speak. That is Ghislaine Maxwell, who was indeed convicted of grooming and taking the sexual innocence of a host of victims. She is what amounts to a serial pedophile, working in conjunction with Jeffrey Epstein herself. Now, she's currently doing a 20-year bid. We are all aware of that. So where does Trump factor into this matter? Well, Ghislaine Maxwell was doing 20 years in maximum security. So she's in the worst facilities there is. She's in there with the worst criminals that comes down the pipe. And when we're talking about taking the sexual innocence of minors, many would suggest that's exactly where she should be. Well, as of last week, the Trump administration took her from the worst facilities to the least secure facilities. So now she's all the way down with the white-collar criminals. She's been given a whole host of new rights, freedoms, and privileges that come along with serving in what they refer to as a camp when you're in minimum security, as opposed to serving in maximum security. Why would Trump do that? Why would they do something like that? Now, we're going to discuss this from a number of angles, but fact is, moving her from maximum security to minimum security puts Trump on the hook for aiding and comforting a serial pedophile. That is no longer an accusation. That's not something that's being alleged. That has actually happened now. Now, is it an effort to get testimony from Ghislaine Maxwell? Possibly. But let's examine what the viewpoint of this stuff would likely be. Now that the whole notion was whether Trump was on the list or not, we don't know. But then Trump steps in and aids and comforts her by moving her to a much better facility, leading to an obvious question. Would you trust any testimony she gives in regards to President Trump? President Trump has literally padded her life significantly now. So then she comes forward and says, well, he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't on the list. Trump didn't do anything wrong. Now, she may be telling the truth, but because of Trump's actions, that may now be hard to believe. Because before the witness testified, you did all sorts of great things to benefit the witness personally. You moved her from maximum security to minimum security, and then soon after she comes out and says you didn't do anything wrong. Are we not supposed to connect the coincidence of how bad that looks? So I will say that while we're still giving Trump credit for we don't know, this does not look good. And this is in addition to a lot of other things he said that were inconsistent about the Epstein list, such as it didn't exist, it's a Democratic hoax, I'm going to release it, I'm not going to release it. I mean, he's been so inconsistent on this. And now you're going to go and aid and comfort a serial pedophile in the process? How can you view anything that comes out of this without at least some sort of hesitancy? Now, the counterpoint for my beloved MAGA is going to be the same as it always is. Why didn't Biden release the list? Why didn't the Democrats release the list? If Trump's name is on the list, Biden would have released it because Trump is an enemy of Biden and Biden didn't want Trump to get elected. So therefore, Trump absolutely would have been outed by Biden to prevent him from becoming president. You're hearing this constantly. But fact is, Trump and Bill Clinton are enemies as well. And if Bill Clinton's name is on the list, which it actually is on the flight list 27 times, then why won't Trump release the list? Your enemy is on the list too. So the whole notion that the person is going to release the list if their enemy is on it is kind of blown out the water because Trump is not releasing the list, even though we know Bill Clinton had a hell of a lot of involvement with Epstein. The fact is, both of these sides of the aisle, both of these men, Clinton and Trump, probably are more than likely going to look bad if the lease is released, having a Biden moment here, as opposed to not. So I just want to ask you folks, simply put, would Trump proactively aiding and comforting the life of Ghislaine Maxwell, would you really trust anything that comes from her in regards to exonerating or even speaking on Trump's involvement with their criminal enterprise? Would you trust anything Ghislaine Maxwell says at this point, now that she's been given such a huge gift from President Trump? Not to mention, when he was asked whether he would pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, he didn't even say no to that. He didn't say something like, hell no, why would I even consider pardoning a serial pedophile? He spoke more consistent in regards to whether or not he would pardon P. Diddy, indicating that P. Diddy said some bad things about him when he was campaigning for president. So that makes it hard for him to consider pardoning P. Diddy because he said bad things about him when he was running for president. Yet this woman who has been convicted of abusing all sorts of minors, I really don't know. I really haven't thought about it. How the hell does that look? These are actual statements from Trump. It's not some liberal fear-mongering or some shit that's made up. He's actually saying this stuff. So I'm going to close by asking that question once again. Would you trust any information, any testimony given by Ghislaine Maxwell in reference to Trump, now that Trump has done all sorts of things to better and comfort her life? What say you? Feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.